Welcome, everyone. I am Karen Kaler, and it's really my great honor to get to welcome you here today as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the University of Minnesota Student Parent Help Center. The center assists student parents in eliminating the multiple financial, social, academic, and other barriers that students with children struggle with daily. The center is the oldest such program in the country, and in 2016 was the first annual NASPA Outstanding Undergraduate Student Parent Program Award winner, among other recognition that the center has received. So the oldest and the best, we like to say. Now, what year do you think this center was founded? Okay, if I had a fourth grader, they'd be telling you 1967, like 50 years ago, right? So I know you know the 67, but I'm going to give you just a brief history of the center. It started in the General College of the University of Minnesota as the Higher Education for Low-Income People Center. Now, see, it said people instead of students, so the acronym is HELP. Help Center, and served all undergraduate underrepresented students, including students with children. In the 1970s, there was a great expansion of programs for low-income underrepresented students nationally, such as the Federal TRIO program, which was really great news. And then in 1984, the Help Center was able to narrow its focus and transition to becoming the Student Parent Help Center, and as a standalone program for undergraduate students with children. And as such, that's how it became one of the oldest student parent programs in the nation. The transition to the Student Parent Center was influenced by the advocacy of a group of single mothers who wanted access to higher education, but they were prevented by the Aid to Families of Dependent Children guidelines that existed at that time. So they advocated for more help for student parents. Okay, so fast forward 20 years to 2005, and with the closing of the U's General College, the SPHC was administratively transitioned to the Office of Student Affairs, which really is a great home for it, where it ought to be. In the past 12 years, it's further grown in terms of the number of students served and the national reputation, including winning model program awards from the National Association of Academic Advisors and the National Association of Student Affairs Administrators in Higher Education. The center staff regularly presents at national conferences, serves as a national policy work groups, founded the largest professional organization for student parent professionals in higher education, and has been instrumental in expanding lactation resources across campus for all parents, not just students. The programs have been modeled at various institutions across the state of Minnesota and as far away as UCLA. Most important, the legacy stretching back 5 decades includes assisting hundreds of mothers and fathers on their journey to becoming educators and engineers, biologists and business leaders, doctors and lawyers. And as we all know, the impact is actually more than double that because it serves 2 generations at a time. You know, students themselves can really describe this better than I can, so I'm just going to give you one quote from a student who's worked with the center. The student said, 2 years ago, I came to you for help when my financial aid was declined. If not for you and your staff during that time, I would not have been able to continue. I always wanted to be in a profession where I can help people. However, I'm a single mother of 4, and coming back to school was very hard. I think that's an understatement, right? Finding a balance between work, kids, and school wasn't an easy task. In addition, the financial stress was overwhelming. Fortunately, a friend told me about SPHC. They provided many helpful services. Mostly, I benefited from the financial support I get from SPHC to pay for the child care. Without this financial assistance, I would not have attended the School of Nursing. So now I get to introduce Susan Warfield. Now, Susan has been the director of the Student Parent Help Center for 12 years, but she began at the center 17 years ago as a student parent counselor. She's also actively engaged in the national level with professional organizations serving student parents and coaching colleagues from a wide range of institutions who are attempting to launch student parent programs. She founded or co-founded 2 university committees, the Vice Provost Committee on Non-Traditional Student Affairs and the Lactation Advocacy Committee. Now, in 2016, Susan won the University of Minnesota's President's Award for Outstanding Service. This is actually a very highly selective award, and it's a great honor, and I hope she won't mind, I'm going to just quote from one of her nominators who said it more eloquently than I could. She said, "Susan is one of the most dedicated professionals I've had the pleasure of working with at the University of Minnesota. Simply put, Susan is an inspiration. She is one of those people who tirelessly gives of herself and advocates for the well-being and success of our underrepresented student population. Susan exudes excitement and enjoyment when working with students. She has poured her heart and soul into her work, which shows through the profound impact she has made in the lives of hundreds of students, faculty, and staff on campus, as well as the significant work she has done nationally to increase awareness and resources for student parents in higher education." So, please join me in welcoming Susan Warfield.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Kaler. Karen has been a strong supporter of students with children and is the only university First Lady who has enjoyed lunch with our Parents as Students Support Group. That's a core portion of our programming for undergraduate students. On behalf of our students, thank you once again for stepping up for us, Karen. I would like to take a minute to acknowledge the rest of the SPHC team, some of which I think have to be out in the lobby right now assisting with tickets. Na King Shong is our undergraduate student parent counselor. Kathy Kamyati is our newly hired graduate student-focused student parent counselor. Moran Ramsey, I knew I'd stumble on the new name, is one of our 2 interns for the year from the Graduate School of Social Work, and another one just walked in, proud former intern. And then Erin Keto Sherman is another social work intern with us this year. So I don't think our undergraduate student employee, but Jaleesa Jackson is our wonderful undergraduate student employee. If there are any SPHC students in the room or former students, would you please stand at this time? I saw a few come in. Wow. Thank you so much and welcome back. I know some of you are alum from several years back. And I would also like to introduce Laura Knudsen with Knudsen with the Office for Student Affairs. There. These are very exciting times for the Student Parent Help Center. Mrs. Kaler has given you a taste of our rich history, and I would like to provide a brief overview of where we are today. The SPHC program is going through one of the greatest periods of growth in its history. With expansion of the state-sponsored post-secondary child care grant from first BA student parents only to graduate and professional students just this past year, and the addition of a new university student service fees child care scholarship, which will soon be opening. We are currently serving 450 undergraduate, graduate, and professional students with children. Already one of the largest student parent programs in the country, we are now serving the widest range of parenting students and largest numbers of any student parent program I am aware of. To assure services remain at the same standard, we have also added an additional staff member, and that's been the first increase in our staff since I have been here. But numbers only tell part of the story, and they mean nothing if they do not reflect successfully graduated students and economically secure families. I am proud to say that the graduation rate for U of M undergraduate student parents is nearly double the national average, and that's significant because student parents, student parents do face many barriers to successful completion, and to be double the national average of 34% is significant. We have also seen a strong increase in donor support in recent years, and the 2 Generations, One Future Scholarship is one key example of that trend. Today is a day to celebrate the SPHC, our history, and a future that has never been brighter. But most importantly, it is about celebrating the students who we have taken that journey with and for. We have traveled together at times through a dark forest of sleepless nights and papers written with a baby on the lap, into the sunlit skies of degree completion, and the arrival at not just a job, but a career. And that difference is critical to lifelong happiness, I believe. Home ownership, and even the college attendance of a few of those babies. And yes, we do have a family that came on board the first year I was in the program, and their child is going off to college this fall. It's very exciting. This is about all of you, the moms and dads, the children in laps, and all those dreams realized. And now on to our program, which we're very excited about. I have to say, in my 17 years, I don't think I've been any more excited about anything we've ever done and about hosting this panel and the wonderful people that are participating in it. I would like to now introduce Bridget Riley and read a little bit about her. Bridget Riley has had a long-standing interest in the lives of student parents since she was one during her college career. Bridget received her undergraduate degree when her daughter was 4 and started graduate school when her daughter was 10. She worked for the University of Minnesota's Student Parent Help Center as a graduate assistant and was so inspired by the difference its programs and services made in students' lives that she focused her master's project on this population, spurring another Minnesota university to open a similar center. I believe that was St. Kate's, which has another illustrious program. During her tenure as executive director of TeenWise Minnesota, a resource organization for those who work to promote adolescent sexual health and support for young parents, she advanced the visibility of student parents by connecting the university's Help Center, the University of St. Catherine, and the State Department of Health, eventually leading to the expansion of these types of support programs to additional higher education programs in the state. And that launched 7 different programs in the state for which St. Kate's and our program served as mentors as they were getting off the ground. Bridget was instrumental in establishing the university's 2 Generations, One Future Scholarship to honor the incredible dedication of student parents to their children and to their education. She hopes the scholarship generates opportunities for an often overlooked student group and supports them in nurturing the value of education in their children. Bridget, please join the stage.
This has got to be one of the most exciting things I have been to at the university in a long time. I am so pleased to be here, and I'm so pleased to have been invited to moderate this panel today. We've got some wonderful folks who are here to share their thoughts, their ideas, their stories with us. And I thought it might be interesting for all of us to know who got here today because you are a student parent or you're connected to a student parent. Have you been a student parent? Are you a student parent? How many of you are here because you are on faculty and or staff and you work with student parents? Thank you for joining us. And how many of you, what other categories can we think of? How many of you are here because you're a scholarship recipient? Yay! There are just so many paths to being in this theater today, and but what a moment for us to just take and consider the Student Parent Help Center that's been around for 50 years now, and to share the excitement and the energy of all of the students who are making their way through this university and on to whatever is next. So I'm just really, really delighted to be here today. Thank you for this opportunity. I have the great pleasure of introducing our panel. We have four illustrious people who will be joining us, and we'll be having a little back and forth conversation about their experiences and their thoughts and ideas. So I'm going to take just a moment to introduce all of you and then invite you to join us up front, all right? So first we have Representative Rena Moran, and on January 4th, 2011, Representative Moran was sworn in as the first African-American representative, state representative, who represents the city of St. Paul here in Minnesota. She represents District 65A in the House of Representatives. It is one of St. Paul's most diverse communities, and she is serving her fourth term in the House. She is the Deputy Minority Leader in the House and the co-chair of the People of Color Indigenous Legislators Caucus. I don't know how to say this. Is it POCI or do you say POSSE? The POSSE Caucus. And she is on 3 different committees. She's on the Education, Finance, the Health and Human Services Reform, and Job Growth, and Energy Affordability Policy and Finance. Incredible experience here. Rena's life is full of experiences as well. She has worked to empower individuals, to strengthen families, and to build vibrant communities. As a legislator, she's advocated for racial, social, and economic justice and equity, and some of her proudest legislative moments and her accomplishments include her work on pay equity through the Women's Economic Security Act. More recently, her work on the Women of Color Opportunities Act. She secured funding for the advancement of women of color in high-wage, high-demand, non-traditional jobs. Her goal is to connect the community to the capital and the capital to the community. She also works for Prevent Child Abuse Minnesota. She created and coordinated a statewide parent leadership team that connects parents to work groups, task forces, and committees within the Department of Human Services to ensure that the parent voice is represented through the involvement and leadership of parents. Oh, and by the way, she is the mother of 7 children and grandmother of 5. So welcome, Representative Moran. Representative Ilhan Omar is an experienced Twin Cities policy analyst, organizer, public speaker, and advocate. And she was recently elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives for District 60B, making her the highest elected Somali American public official in the United States. Ilhan is the Assistant Minority Leader with assignments to 3 House committees: Civil Law and Data Practices Policy, Higher Education and Career Readiness Policy, and Finance, and State Government Finance. Boy, those committee names are long. As a former student parent herself, Representative Omar prioritized passing legislation that strengthened supports for student parents in her first legislative session. She was able to pass legislation that increased the child care grant for student parents from $2,800 to $3,000 and increased the length of eligibility from 8 semesters to 10. In addition to serving in the legislature, Ilhan is a mother of 3 and the director of policy initiatives at Women Organizing Women, where she empowers East African women to take civic leadership roles in their community. Born in Somalia, Ilhan and her family fled the country's civil war when she was 8. Her family spent 4 years in a refugee camp in Kenya before coming to the United States in the 1990s. So welcome, Representative Omar. And we have a couple of representatives from the student world as well. So Zabiba Samaru is a junior, double majoring in human resource development and business marketing education. And she plans to work in a business field, specifically in human resource administration, to improve the overall employment experience. She's mother to a 1-year-old son and has been involved with the Student Parent Help Center since her first year at the university. She attends weekly meetings and uses the study lounge there frequently, and she'll be graduating in the spring of 2019, plans on going to graduate school in the future. Welcome, Zabiba. And Sarah Lekowicz is proud to belong to a long line of student parents who, with their children, graduated from the University of Minnesota. And between navigating diapers and bottles, potty training and lice outbreaks, Sarah received both her BA and her MA in Communication Studies. An advocate for improving equity and access, Sarah is a consultant teaching workshops on implicit bias and a project manager with Construction Careers Foundation. She's a former Ronald E. McNair Scholar, a member of the Anti-Racist Pedagogy Across the Curriculum, and a former Human Rights Commissioner for the City of St. Paul. She was recently featured in a Deed publication for her efforts in diversifying the workforce and building equity within the construction building trades. On weekends, she can be found riding her motorcycle with other empowered women or hanging with her kids in the backyard. She is here from Lauderdale, Minnesota with her 2 children. So thank you, Sarah, and welcome. So would you like to join us? You can see we have some very illustrious and very dedicated and accomplished women with us today. Oh. Oh. Yeah, come on up.
Because I don't want to be first.
Okay.
That's right. All right. So we're hoping that you'll participate with us in this conversation and really want to welcome your thoughts and what you want to share with this group of people today about your experiences. But again, we've just got this opportunity to tap into all of the experience and insight that you bring. So we're very pleased for this opportunity. So wanted to ask if we could start by having each of you share a little bit about your experience as a student parent and how you feel your degree journey was or is currently is different because of your dual role as both a student and a parent. So I'm open to whoever is ready to start. If one of you would care to go, then we'll just move along the line. Anybody ready? All right, then I'll call on somebody. Down on the far end.
All right, I knew it. I made eye contact.
Yep.
So I should have known better. No, I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Suzanne, for the, is it, no? Okay, all right, trying to read hand signals. Okay, so trying to think. So how was my experience as a student parent? So it's different when you come back to school, I think, as an adult with children, trying to balance all of the real life adulting, like accountabilities, plus trying to obtain your education. When I came back, it was 2008. My children were 6 months and 2.5 years old. I was a single mom going through a divorce, and I found the Student Parent Help Center by researching basically what was available and found housing and access to scholarships to help get me going. I think one of the biggest challenges I had in the beginning was trying to out myself as a student parent to my professors and wondering if that would be helping or hindering me in their classroom. And that was a big conversation topic in the Student Parent Help Center. At the time, there wasn't a policy at the University of Minnesota for being able to take absences from your classes for children. So if you were in a classroom where the professor wasn't accommodating to student parents, your grade would suffer if you had a child with a fever or, in my case, 2 outbreaks of lice. True, I think it's funny, but it wasn't funny then. But, you know, trying to meet with the professors in advance, see if there's anything in their syllabus, again, to take accountability for that, not coming in and asking for special treatment, but being able to advocate for ourselves as parents and, you know, try to make it a successful semester in whatever class that was in. And learning to balance that, because if I think my first lesson as a student parent was never wait till the last minute on anything, because it's guaranteed your child will develop a fever the night that you're trying to type a paper. So to do that ASAP and to be done with it. But I think, so just navigating those different roles, dealing with obtaining, being able to pay rent on time because it's not just you, but your children, finding sources to obtain diapers because there's no government assistance for diapers, there's no student loans you can take out for diapers, trying to navigate, just staying afloat, food-wise, but also trying to maintain a 4.0 GPA, taking 20 credits. Maybe I'm just speaking for me, but like it's very difficult. So finding the Student Parent Help Center and navigating and finding that community there was so important to my success at both undergrad and then later on graduate school. I would have never been able to accomplish either of those things and be a good mom on top of all that. So I may have meandered a little, so I'll end there.
Thank you, that's great. No, it gives us a nice flavor, thank you. Would you like to go next?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is this oh, okay. So my journey is a bit different. I was pregnant with my son freshman year when I started here, and my journey is different because I'm a first-generation student, which means my parents didn't go to college. They didn't have the higher education that I'm able to achieve right now. So when I first started here at the U, like I said, I was pregnant within my first semester. So one of the first things I did was look for the Parent Help Center. Like, I know that I need that someone's going to help me on campus, someone's going to be here. So it was like juggling, like, how do I find a place to help me go through, have my child and be able to still graduate on time, which I am right now. I'm graduating with 2 degrees on time. And so one of the first step for me is to research how do I find that support group, because I know I want to be at a different level than my parents were. I want to be educated. I want to get this degree, and how do I also be a mom to my son? So it's kind of different because I'm not able to stay on campus a lot and join student groups because I have a kid to take care of. But my first semester, I didn't go to my professors and like tell them I'm pregnant and all that. But my second semester, when I went to all my professors, I told them I'm expecting a baby. How do I get in my school and also like take the exams before my baby comes? So all my professors were understanding. They told me we can give you an incomplete and you complete your course over the summer. And knowing myself, I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm determined. I want to get my schoolwork out of the way before my baby comes so that I can spend the summer with him. So I was able to take the exams earlier than the other students and spend the summer with my son. And everything worked out perfectly. And then right now, still like, how do I juggle being a student, a parent, and working? It's really difficult, but when you have like your family, when you have the support system, it's something that you can do, and that's how my journey is going.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ilhan is like, you're next. So I am so impressed with these young ladies. I mean, that is a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and it really helps to have a network of support. And so I come from a different place of someone who went to school many years ago, right? And when in my last year of school, so I attended Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois. And in my senior year, I became pregnant. I remember going home and trying to decide how I was going to do this, and took a semester off and realized I only needed another semester to graduate. And I didn't have that type of support. I didn't have parents. I didn't really have a network because I was living in Chicago, Illinois. Southern Illinois was many miles away from Chicago. And so I had to try to figure out how to do this. So I ended up, I'm from a family of 7 myself, also a mother of 7 now. But my younger brother, I went to my younger brother and said, hey, I really want to go back to school and finish this last semester up, and was able to convince my brother to come and go back to school with me. But that meant finding an apartment, for him and I and the baby. My daughter was 6 months at the time, because I needed someone to watch her while I went to school. And for that semester, my brother was my network of support that I needed to get through a semester and graduate. And so to sit here and to hear about the policy that really creates great practice for mothers often enough, and maybe there's some dads in the program, but often enough women who want and need to go to school, be educated, but also to be a great parent. And to have that support here, I just think it's an awesome, awesome thing to have that really support, I want to say older women, but it's not always older women, right? It could be someone, and as young as this beautiful woman over here with that beautiful young boy who keeps staring at me. But to create these opportunities for your success and to create a space for that to happen is an awesome thing. But when I was going to school, I didn't quite have that network of support. I had to create it and make it happen for me.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My journey was very bumpy. I think in attaining my college degree, I had my first child my freshman year of college, and which I ended up dropping out because when I was pregnant, I had these challenges, health challenges, so I wasn't able, I didn't have a car, I couldn't afford a car, and so I had challenges getting to school on a bus because it bumps, and I had kidney issues, and so I dropped out, and I remember just thinking every single day, when am I gonna go back? And I went back, I think, 3 months after she was born, and most of my challenges in finding the ability to graduate on time or just even graduate was mostly due to just having, the financial struggles, the not having, I think, the extended family support, getting married at a young age to someone who is at a similar age, also going to school. We didn't want to make one another decide who was going to be able to go to college. So we both were like, I want to do this too. And so it was a lot of struggle in trying to keep a job, make sure that our children were fed, and trying to parent them, but also making sure that we were able to go to school and maintain good grades, because the families that we come from wouldn't settle for anything less. My parents and his parents were very much against the idea of getting married that young, because we were both the youngest, and they had higher expectations for us, and so the caveat to them allowing us to do that was to say, okay, you have to get good grades and you have to become somebody, and you don't want to be the only kid who has gotten the full opportunities to be here in the United States more than our siblings did, and become a failure, and not having a college degree to our parents was being a failure. And so just trying to figure out how to navigate that pressure of also taking care of extended families, having to support those that we left behind, and financially caring for our parents and our grandparents, and realizing that there are a lot more responsibilities just to not to only our children, but to our communities and those that were responsible for creating us as well. So my educational journey was 8 years. And so I was in my mid-20s by the time I was able to attain my bachelor's degree. And a lot of my college debt, I had a lot of scholarships, so I didn't have to take student loans for educational purposes, but all of my student loans were taken so that I could pay for childcare and to supplement my life. And that's when I got elected. That sort of was the one thing that was nagging at me, just trying to make sure that other students who also want to have the ability to have their children and understand that that's a choice that they've made, that we don't punish them for that choice, and that we give them the tools that they need to be able to both graduate and be a good parent and not have a college debt because they chose to be parents.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for sharing such heartfelt memories and sharing that journey path. I think it's good for all of us to know that the bumps are there and you found your way. You have found your way through, or you are finding your way through, and that's pretty remarkable. You are, some of you are newer in your journey, and some of you have been on it a while, but no doubt each of you has a dream, has had some dream for yourself, for your family, for your child. I wanted to ask, how has education helped you reach your dream or your dreams? And we don't have to go in the same order.
Okay, I'll start. I mean, for me, I grew up in a household of educators. Everyone in my family that I at least got to see has a college degree, and so success was always tied to the ability to have an education. And I think in helping with my potential and realizing like what my trajectory in life could be. Education, I think, has enabled me to see that and to pursue it. And I think for my family, I'm the hippie. I'm the one the free spirited that kind of tries everything a little bit. I think I had like 500 different majors when I was in college. I think I ended up graduating with like over 200 credits. It was ridiculous because every semester I took 24 credits. I liked being at school, and I think the ability to immerse myself in that environment and to absorb everything that education institutions had to offer, I think has allowed for me to expand my horizon and sort of changed, I think, the trajectory and what I envisioned for myself and what others envisioned for me to something that is beyond what people could have imagined I would be doing.
Thank you. How has education helped you reach your dream or dreams?
I'll go next. So I think my dreams are ever evolving. When I came back to school, I had already done 2 years when I was 18, 19, and I had dropped out with a very low GPA because I had other things in life I couldn't focus. So came back at 31. My dream at the time was to get out of working in the restaurant industry and to be able to support my family and to not have to rely on government assistance or anybody else. I wanted to do it myself, much like a rambunctious toddler. And so, but I learned part of that dream became learning to make it a we kind of journey instead of a me journey. I think that definitely helped, and that altered my dream because originally I wanted to get my master's and end up in an office corner window with Prada pumps. It was a small picture dream. I don't know. I'm a picture person, so I like to visualize. But then that changed, and now I'm living my dream because I am able to provide for my family. I can, on my way in today, I bought a glitter coffee mug that has the U of M on it, and it was all of $18. But when I was a student, I could have never afforded an $18 coffee mug. But so that's part of the dream. So it's the glitter mug. But it's those small things. It's an interesting dream. But it's being able to have a career now that sustains me and my family, but also gives back to the community in ways that I could never possibly dream of giving back. And so having that community impact that also sustains a family, that's my dream currently, and I get to do it because of my time here at the University of Minnesota, so.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Okay. Education. So my journey was a little challenge because I graduated high school, and at my sophomore year, my mother became sick, and she ended up passing away. But she was always saying to me, "You got to get an education, right? You have to get an education. Education is the path out of poverty. Education is the path to getting a good job. Education, education." But when she became sick, she was still saying that same message to me, and I wanted to be home with her. And she wouldn't let me do that. She just wouldn't let that happen. So I did something silly, like decided that I was going to flunk out. If I flunk out, she could not make me stay because, I wouldn't be able to stay. So I worked really hard to do that. I worked really hard to flunk out. And then she passed away, and I was on probation. So I went back and had to work really hard, right? Because that was her thing. She wanted me to have an education, so I couldn't let her down. It was just something that at that point of watching her be sick with cancer, losing her life, and not finishing college, I had to do it. And so I went back. I went back on probation, took 18, 20 hours worth of class courses to try to make up for being on probation. And eventually, I graduated with a degree in early childhood education. But I remember back in my community, at the age of 13, looking around, deciding what I wanted to do with my life. And it was about working with young kids. I wanted to be an elementary teacher. That's what I wanted to do. And went in, and around my junior year, I remember talking to my social worker and saying, I really want to work with kids, and how can I be the most effective? Where? Is it early? Is it middle school? Is it high school? And I remember her saying to me, well, if you want to have the greatest impact, you got to start young. You got to start really, really young. And I ended up majoring in early childhood education and graduated with that degree. And it has been, I worked in that field for 15 years. Whether it's private, public, state, Head Start, I done it. I have done it. But I always felt guilty about doing something that I loved and got paid to do it. But it pays off. Education pays off. And I have never regretted a moment of it. It really creates a pathway for you to really change people's lives. It changed my life. And I've had the opportunity to work in so many different areas of early learning that I'm hoping that I have transformed some young person's lives today, and maybe a parent, by the way, because it really gives you an opportunity to be engaged with parents also. And that has been my lifelong lesson. I find myself always in these arenas where I am engaged with children, but it also creates a pathway into the lives of adults, because we all love our kids, right? We always want the best for our kids. But I've never regretted a moment of having to work so darn hard to get off probation, to graduate, and to get into the workforce. And early childhood education doesn't always does not pay good dollars. You cannot make a really good living off of it. but the rewards are so great, and I have never, ever.
Can you get an $18 glitter?
I cannot buy $18 little, $18 mug, right? It just doesn't happen. But it should be fun, though, right? It's really fun. But I would encourage, and I do encourage everyone to remember that education is the path out of poverty,
Yeah.
and is the pathway to a good paying job.
Thank you.
I also grew up with my dad always telling us, like, he brought us here so that we can get educated. Me and my other siblings, he brought us here on the note that he didn't get education, my mom didn't get education, so education is the path to a successful life. How do you improve yourself? And so I believe that higher education will help me reach my goal of how do I have a stable career, how do I support my son, and achieve that goal of being successful, giving back to my community, improving people, helping people in my community come out of poverty. My family came out of poverty because of education, and education will help me reach that dream of having a stable career, having a better life for myself and my son, and my family as well.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Very moving responses. It's exciting to bring our dreams into the room, and it's exciting to give voice to those dreams and to see where they can take us. A little different way to look at this is about value. What value has education had in your life? And it might be some of the similar things that you've already shared, but I wanted to ask that question. What is the value of education in your life? Who would like to start?
I can go.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, the value of education in my life is it makes me more educated and become more valuable. It helps me to do research. Like when I was pregnant with my son, I'm not an open person, so I didn't go to people and ask them what's happening, what should I do. But instead, I researched. I found a support group outside in my neighborhood that does prenatal yoga, exercises that can help, during delivery and stuff. So I was able to use research to find those connections. And then I also researched on my own and found the Parent Help Center. And I was able to do research and find scholarships that can help me, even though I get Pell Grant and stuff. I also got scholarships because of going out of my way and finding. So for me, it's how do I research and find those sources out there? Because I know there are things out there that can help me reach my goal instead of just waiting for it to come to me, because that's not possible. That's not something that happens. It's because I'm driven, and education has helped me learn how to research, how to go out and find things so that you can achieve. No one knows you better than yourself. No one knows what you need. Nobody's going to just look through you and tell you this is what you got to do, this is what you got to do. For me, it's more of how do I do it? How do I find the support for myself and my son? And when I found the Parent Help Center, first I walked in there scared, I'm going to drop out of college because I'm going to have a baby. I'm not even going to get through the first semester. But when I walked out of that meeting with the counselor, it was an opposite response, yes, we're going to help you help you achieve that goal. We work together, and this is what you're going to do. We're going to help you get there. And all that is because I was able to research and because I'm educated, and it put me on that path to find that support from my community and from my school as well. So that's why that's the value that education has in me.
Thank you.
I think three values that education has for me. One, I was raised to believe that education and knowledge is the one thing that no one can take away from you. You can lose, your you can lose all the things that you have. You can lose your home. You can lose your limbs. You can lose your sight. You can lose your hair. You can lose everything that's of value to you. But education is something that is yours, that you get to keep no matter what happens. The second value that education has is that it's a lens through the world, and it allows for you to experience and see and broaden your horizon in a way that I think nothing else could. And I think the third value that that it has is that it allows, it's a very charitable thing. It's not something that you keep to yourself. Whatever knowledge that you gain in throughout your educational journey is things that you get to share with, and there are others that are experiencing it with you. And I think those are the three things that have always kept me on track on my educational journey.
So like Ilhan, I agree, knowledge, education is knowledge, and knowledge is power. To me, it's important to be an informed person. And so I think that's what education does. It lends you a lens that sets you on a path, to be more informed and be more knowledgeable. And I also agree that, what I have learned is that when you gain knowledge, that is something that you share with other people. It's not something that you keep to yourself. It's something that you share with others and give others the possibility of being to be more informed about the world around them and the way that they can be productive citizens too. So I carry that piece with me.
Wow, I love listening to what everyone has to say. I was thinking how I wanted to respond, because my value of education, or what I value. So when I came back to obtain my degree, I come from my family's a little bit more traditional in a sense that after high school we should just get married and have kids and find someone to support us and maybe get a job. I was told, don't go to college, just get a forklift operating license, you'll be fine. I didn't do that. Yeah. So for me, going back to college was proving that I was worthy of an education, because I had to fight for that. I was accused of being a selfish mother for going back to college, and I had to fight. I had religious uncles sending me letters, trying to convince me that this was the path to dire ends by obtaining education. I had to ask my mom if he knew I was gay. I think he was at the wrong argument there, but anyway, so to me, obtaining an education meant finding my worth within my family and in society, and I agree with what everybody said here, that it is a butterfly effect. It's sharing it and spreading that worth to other folks who might not normally have access to a higher ed, and letting them know that regardless of what anybody else says, you're worthy and you deserve it, and go out and get that. So education is very valuable.
Thank you so much. I've heard each of you share a little bit about, big picture, thinking about the doors that education can open. And those of us who are engaged in this, in education, from whatever angle that is, we know what doors it's opened for us. But I think for a student parent, there's some doors that have been closed, there's some doors that are locked, there are a few times some pretty seriously thick doors that we got to figure out a way through. And I wanted to ask if you have given some thought to that question about what doors has higher education opened for you. You got through the tough ones while you were here, and then what other doors opened up?
I think of education as one of the greatest equalizers.
Yeah.
And I think, in today's world, there in almost every application there's a particular requirement of a level of education, and I think it's sort of the one thing that makes everything equal, and then it's the plus. And I think oftentimes if you are missing that particular equalizer, it makes everything else harder. It makes those doors thicker. Yeah. And for me, that's how I viewed it, and I think it helps in a world, especially for me, in a world where I have to navigate being a minority among minorities. It's a great equalizer.
Yeah, thank you.
So I've had a lot of doors open for me, but one that I want to focus on is actually one that opened for my own mother, seeing me go through obtaining my education. She went back and obtained her bachelor's and master's at the age of 60. So right? So I think sometimes by us obtaining our education, we open doors for others, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Should have went earlier for that. So I think one of the easiest doors that we can say education, what education does is really, I have never really had to work hard to find a job. So it is that access to employment that makes it a little bit easier. I know these days you're like, you got a college degree, you can't find a job, you can't find a good paying job. But that is one of the things that I found that it was that access to employment, that people see your value more readily, when you have a degree behind your name. And I found that to be so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mine is a bit close to that. I've had a lot of internships, and my network circle has grown because of the relationship that I held with my supervisors. They write recommendation letters for me for scholarships and stuff, and they recommend me to other employers. So because of them, because of the education that I have more internships and have the ability to learn from my supervisors and grow more professionally. So, and also build onto my skill sets and build onto those relationships. The doors that higher education has opened for me.
Well, may the doors continue to open for all of you. We've talked a lot about what education has done for you as individuals. I wanted to ask if you have some thoughts about what is the access that you have had to higher education or the degree journey that you're on. What impact has that had on your child or your children?
So as a mother of 7, so the one thing that I realize is that you learn early as a teacher that every child is different, and they can all grow up in the same household, but they all see the world differently. But they all are different individuals. So the journey for each one of my kids has been different, but they have all been able to see the value in education and to strive for that. Some have decided, to go on to college. Some have worked coming right out of school. Some have went to trade school. But yeah, I know that because I do have a degree, that they see the need to want to strive for something more, something bigger than themselves, in a way to secure a livelihood, that they are capable and able to take care of themselves. So, as much as I used to fight with my mom about, I want to come home, I want to be at home, finishing school was, and has served me well, even after graduating from college and went on to have other kids, I worked, I worked through all 7 of those births, Every now and then I would take out time to just be at home, because some days you want to be home when they get from school and you want to volunteer at the school, or, you want to be there with a meal. But throughout, I worked. And I know that they was able to see that in me, and that really helped them see their own pathway.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My son is still young, so it's not a lot of impact for now because he's still young, but I think in the future it'll show him that even though there are obstacles in your way, you can achieve your goal, and teach him that, I went through a lot. I'm still full-time student, working and still taking care of him. I hope he doesn't have to have all those obstacles or go through a lot, but it'll teach him to focus on your goal, achieve your goal, and achieve higher education. Go bigger than where I want, go above and beyond of what I've done, and to teach him, get those strong skills into him, and teach him to go achieve his goals no matter the obstacles. Yes, you're going to have obstacles on your way. It's going to be a bumpy road, but to go to and achieve those goals, and how higher education can help you achieve those goals.
My sister always says you can't be what you can't see. And I think for my children, they visualize themselves in everything that I am able to be and want to be better. And so when I was in college and they were really young, they came with me often to my classes. I had a lot of night classes. I couldn't get babysitters because we rotate, and sometimes it wouldn't work with my husband's schedule. And I think it's just more accepted in classrooms for a mother to have children with her than a father. And for my daughter, when she was like 7 years old, she had a whole career path, a life path that she mapped out, and it's now in her wall in her room, but it used to be in the wall in the living room, so that others could see it and sort of encourage her. That's why she put it there. And so it had like what was necessary for her to be done successfully in elementary, what was necessary for her to be, like done with middle school and high school. And she had mapped out all of the volunteer activities that she must do, and all of the after-school curriculums that she must be involved in order to get into the kind of colleges she wanted to get into, because she didn't want to get into any of the colleges I went to, because she's smarter than I am. And she always says I was limited because I learned English when I was 12, and she was born with the language here, and so she had all of these things planned out at the age of 7, and it's quite fascinating. Right now she's a freshman in high school, and when she started 6th grade, she came home one day and she was like, "Mom, I found a debate class," and I said, "Okay, that's fine." And then she was like, "Well, because remember, if I do debate, then I could get possibly a full ride to college. And the Ivy League schools really love people who do debate while they're in high school." And I was like, "But you're in middle school." And she was like, "Well, if I do debate in middle school, then I could do varsity debate in high school as a freshman, which is rare." And so she had all of these things that she could envision for herself that I couldn't even begin to think about. For me, the ability to go to any kind of college was great. The ability to finish any time in my life was fine, right? I just my dad had to just say, "Yeah, she graduated." That was the requirement, and I was achieving my grades were always based on what would make my father proud, and I think a lot of my drive at a young age was because I wanted to make my dad, who had sacrificed so much, proud, right? Kind of like what Representative Rena Moran was saying. It was about this is their dream, so I was fulfilling their dream. And I think for what I've been able to do for my children is for them to think about, my mom's dreams are limited, they have a cap. So how could we expand and excel and be beyond that? I remember a few months ago I was on the Trevor Noah show, and there was people tweeting about it, and my daughter tweets at him and she says, "Well, it's nice that you have her on, but remember my name because I'm going to be president." And I'm like, well, isn't that amazing that that's because of what she's able to see me do. She's able to dream a lot higher than I could dream, and the possibilities are much more endless for her, I think, than they were for me, and my scope was limited because of the people that came before me that I could try to emulate, and her scope is very different and wider because of who she's able to emulate and see.
I like that your daughter is a visionary. Her vision board, I can relate to. Yeah, Rena and I were just over here talking about that.
You should see her room, man.
I bet. Does it have glitter?
No, she doesn't have glitter.
Because then we're kindred. Okay.
The little one has glitter.
The litter, okay, there we go. So I think, echoing off, all of what these folks are saying, but I think how it's impacted my children and our lives, other than just the basic, we have all the Maslow's needs met, which are great, but they are able to explore and start from a different point than we were able to start off, which is great. And I also find that education is kind of a family value. It's part of our family identity. So it's something that we talk about, we discuss. I have a 9 and a 12-year-old, and we have intellectual discussions around whatever the dinner table, or if it's a touchy subject, they sit in the car and my eyes face forward so they can let all the stuff roll. But and they shock and amaze me at how brilliant and amazing they are. And I think that I used to cart them around campus, and I remember in grad school, I had my first semester of grad school, my first final, it was like a half-day event. We were presenting in teams, and there was a huge snowstorm the night before. All of Minneapolis public schools shut down, which meant all the daycares were shut down, and I have these 2 small children, 2 and 4, and I have to pull them on a sled across campus. And they join me during the presentation, and my 4.5-year-old at the time corrected my professor's handwriting on the whiteboard. And I'm like, oh my God. So they're empowered to do those things, which I would have never been able to do. And so I continue to see that growth and that expansion of their minds going past what I would ever been able to accomplish. So that's great.
Thank you. So many ripple effects, right?
Right.
We don't even know where they'll end, but we know what this group of the children whose lives we have touched, some of those amazing impacts. So thank you for sharing that. It was not very long ago that women alone could not attend higher education, and then the doors opened a little bit and women could attend. Not all women even then could attend. Some of that's changed over the centuries now here in the United States. But it just wasn't very long ago, and we are here to cherish the fact that not only can women attend, but mothers can attend, and fathers can attend, and parents can be here, and we can have lives that are at different stages, but we can still have access to education, and we appreciate the things that the Help Center has done to make that possible here and other programs in other places. But it's still not an easy path all over the world, or even here in the United States, or even here in Minnesota. But wanted to ask, what are some tangible actions that you think we could take, any of us who are in this room today, to promote access to college or to create a welcoming environment on campus for student parents, or some things we might do to support policies, whether those are legislative policies or something else, but what other kind of policies, what might we have an impact on? So it's a broad question, and if you want to come at it from whatever angle fits your perspective, that's great, but thinking about what is it that we as individuals in this room could do to promote access to college, to create a welcoming campus environment, or to support policies.
So I'll start. I think oftentimes, a lot of students, when they find out that they're having a baby, it's sort of thinking, I no longer fit into the culture of what it means to be a college student. And I think doing some education with the teachers and some of the counselors, and prepping them to have the proper conversations with these young people who are impressionable and are oftentimes dealing with a lot of anxiety about all of the changes that are happening and how they're supposed to cope with it, is a place to start. And I think for the returning parents, the returning students who are parents, making sure that the information is accessible to them about the support systems that exist, I think would be really helpful in promoting a welcoming environment for student parents. This past legislative session, I passed a bill that is about a Bill of Rights for student parents that's supposed to help institutions work through having a set of standards and criteria set up so that when student parents are in an environment within their institutions, that they understand what kind of rights that they have, what resources they can access, and eventually making sure that there are financial resources that go to these institutions that provide for lactation rooms, that provide for these kind of student parent centers to exist, that provide for social workers and others that are able to help them navigate system, and making sure that we also have a little bit of emergency resources to make sure that if a student parent has their car that breaks down that morning and they have that big midterm exam, that there are some resources that they can access to fix their car, so that they're able to take their children to childcare or to school and be able to get to school themselves and take their classes, so they're not failing because they're not able to have the kind of resources that they need to take care of the other responsibilities that they have. It is a huge burden that they carry because they are responsible for another being. And so it's a slew of things. I think your center probably has all of the other things the bill is supposed to do. And I think Representative Rena, Moran, myself, and other representatives at the Capitol are always looking at ways that we can legislate and help create systems that are going to make college accessible and affordable for student parents and all parents, student parents and all students who college has not always been a welcoming and accessible environment for.
Yeah. Thank you.
I better go before I forget. This is how I write myself notes. So first, just for transparency, you guys, I am a huge advocate for women and girls. And you're right, college has not always been accessible for women, especially for women of color. And, there are still many challenges and barriers that are in place. So it's really important to me when you look at a parent health center, which is often would be for women who are going back to school or young women. But there's a lot of data out there that talks about women 30 plus going back to school, right, who have families. And that support, that network of support is so critical to them being successful or not. Because we know education is not, it's not an easy task. It's not an easy task to devote your time to a class, a subject area, to be able to study, to have some me time to do it. It's not easy. And so recognizing that and knowing that there are many women who are going back into the workforce for higher wages, good paying jobs, just want to be more self-sufficient, to be able to take care of themselves and their family, and maybe find a good husband if they choose to. I'm just kidding, you guys.
Or a wife. She said or a wife.
But creating those spaces and places for that to happen is really critical to really allowing successes to come out of every student that wishes to attain a degree and have that support. So it is of value for me that does align with policies, because I think sometimes you have to have those policies and processes and practices in place, because they don't always just happen. So we have to align good policies that create those practices to get the outcomes that we want. And as Representative Ilhan Omar has stated, that has been some of the work that we work towards, recognizing that we need to align policies with good practices for those good practices to always happen. Everything that happens in my life and world these days, I'm looking at a policy. How do that align? Otherwise we find ourselves fighting a fight that's in opposition to what we want and what we need to move ourselves forward. So, very important that we create policies that align with what we want and create the practices that we know is going to be inclusive for people to be successful.
Right. I just have to echo that, because I think policies are the best way to create some of those structures that can support student parents, like the policy that was changed regarding attendance and being able to have an excused day from class for a sick child or for school conferences or something along those lines. But also within policy, making sure that it's smart policy. When I was at the Student Parent Help Center, there was a lot of students, married, unmarried, younger, older. I mean, you've got the gamut of all different folks coming into that help center. It was a wonderful experience, but we all had different struggles. Some of them were within policies that were designed to help support, but they ended up just hindering and making us going to obtain our degrees even more difficult than if we had chosen to just go to work. I know that, and I'm sure some of it have changed, but when I was in some of my fellow student parents, the type of paperwork we had to have filled out was sometimes embarrassing and damaging to our egos. I remember I had to have, in order to obtain my SNAP benefits and to maintain some childcare benefits, I had to have my professor sign off every single day that I was in class, just to prove that I was there. And they didn't want to sign off. Some of them refused. And I'm like, well, if you don't sign this, I'm not going to be able to get my, food next month. So, and so again, there to help support us in school, but also sometimes hindering. And then, I don't know, it's just a lot of paperwork. Paperwork within policies gets to be very burdensome, but policies that are there to support are very welcome. So it's a balance, I think. It's just something to take into consideration, because sometimes policies that are there to help just actually end up having people, and they have to drop out. Because if you lose your childcare mid-semester, you're done and you don't get to go back. And then now you've used your student loans, and now your time clock is ticking down, and your ability to be part of those folks graduating has become even more burdensome. It's further out of your reach, and you're scrambling, and you're dealing, and you're trying to figure out how the heck you're going to make it. And so being able to balance that on top of trying to, grow your brain and to become a smarter, better functioning member of society. You're trying to balance just surviving with adding education. It's hard to do both. So anyway, policies are good most of the time.
Yeah, having policies, like specifically having like things on like student syllabus so that like the professors know what to expect, like how to talk to your students and whether like they can't make it to class when your kid keeps getting sick, and that like understanding that it's not just an excuse, it's something that is actually happening, and promoting more awareness of the Parent Help Center. Like I know some people that I met, they're like, there's a help center here, there's a parent center on campus. Like some people are not aware, and I was aware because I was able to research it and find the help center. So because like the help center is like a place where for me it's like my second home. I'm there like talking to parents that are going through the same thing that I'm going through with having a kid, trying to get this education, trying to get this degree. So it's like a place where people understand you, they know what you're going through, and they can also help you. We have advisors that can help you go through what's happening. So promoting more awareness and having more things on the student syllabus So even your classmates can understand, yeah, there's a student parent here that they're here to get their education and they also have a student, so they have other needs. And so that when we're doing group work and I tell the students, like, keep saying, I can't meet you today, I can't meet you today because something came up with my son, that they understand, like, yeah, that's actually something that's happening. She has a human being to take care of. So if the professors bring it up and your classmates understand you, it just makes everything better. So having something on the syllabus and promoting the Parent Help Center would be.
Can I add on one thing? I noticed earlier there was a lot of hands that went up that were faculty that were interested in supporting students. I did adjunct faculty for about 3 years, but if there was any sort of boilerplate template of how to show that support, if that's available to faculty to add to their syllabus, that would be something that would be policy, or that would be very supportive. Because sometimes professors don't know how to make that known or how to showcase that support in a syllabus. Oh, good. Fantastic.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about your journeys. We've talked about your dreams and the values that education has in your life, the doors that it's opened for you, the ripple effects on the lives of your children, and some of the ideas that you have about how we can make this a little bit easier for those coming behind. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would want to add? You've got a captive audience. What do you want them to know? Anything we haven't covered?
I was just also say scholarships are incredibly important. I was able to obtain the Carol E. McPherson scholarship and also the TRIO, so I was able to get into grad school because of the TRIO scholarship, the summer program, the Ronald E. McNair. Those types of programs are incredibly important. I wouldn't be here today or have obtained either of my degrees without those scholarships.
I was going to say that too. And the one thing I know, we talked about why education is so important and what does that mean. And for so many people who wants to go to college and they are parents, it's difficult. They don't know how to navigate or think it's possible. So I just share with you that I always share with myself and my kids and my community and others, that when you learn something, you share it. This is not something we keep to ourselves, right? So you all become a messenger of this message about a service that is provided at the U here for parents with children, and an opportunity for them to have the support they need to attain the scholarship that they want to make life better for themselves and their family. So I am going to become a messenger of this message, and I hope all of you out there will help share that message to other people.
I don't know. I guess my final thing is just a message of support. It is really hard being a college student, especially first generation college student, especially if you are an immigrant, a minority, all of these other things. It's really hard. But I think it's even harder when you are a student parent, having to deal with, the guilt Sarah talked about, having to navigate all of the other stresses and the barriers that just exist with that. And so if you know of a student parent, if you are a teacher that has a student parent, please provide that extra support that offer the ability to just listen, hear them out, and kind of think about just having some resources to help them navigate, so that that they are able to be successful and have the same level of playing field with other students. And if you are a student parent yourself, it gets easier, and keep fighting, keep pushing. I know studies show that student parents often graduate with higher higher level of acceptance into like graduate school and other things. And so keep pushing and believing that you are it and you can do it and you deserve it and you're valuable, and college is also for you, and that you can also take advantage of all of the other fun things that are available, and bring your kids, and don't let others tell you it's not your space. You don't need permission.
Well, my final message is like combination of everything they all said. So kind of like, this goes to like classmates, helping when like a parent student, just realizing that they're not just going to college, they also have other responsibilities at home. So helping them, like asking like how, or like even when I go to the Parent Help Center, I know there are students there that go through the same thing that I'm going through. So just being that, having that open ear to just listen. Sometimes just listening to people when they just want to keep talking and talking, like my kid did this, I'm so frustrated and I have an exam and da. Just like listening, being there to just listen, even just listening helps, and being that support community so that the student parent can be like, yeah, this classroom is like really open, like they know about my kid and they're accepting, because there are some stereotypes like, oh, you have a kid and you're trying to do school, like you can't do that. Like there are some stereotypes. So helping the student break away from that stereotype and helping the student realize that, yeah, I can achieve this goal. I can be a parent and I can also get education. So I can also do the same thing you're doing with this going on. So just being that positive support system for student parents.
Words of wisdom from all of you. Thank you so much. We have had the opportunity to hear from Representative Moran and Representative Omar, Zabiba, Sarah. We want to thank you all for sharing so much with us today and illuminating this population and all of the amazing things that they accomplish. So should we give them a round of applause? Okay. Awesome. But don't leave. Don't leave. Don't leave. Yes. Yeah.
I just want to reiterate everything they just said, and I want everybody to pause and look around this room. And I want to thank each and every one of you. I know some of you were, I think, told to come because your professors were giving you credit, which is awesome. We love that when I got that email. But this is a constant battle that we face with this population. When I talk about, we've existed for 50 years on this campus, and people don't know we exist. And I could have given, I believe Ilhan was at the U of M when this program was going, I could have bought her a car, literally. I could have given her an emergency grant for a car, but no one got her to us. And each of you that are here spread the word, and I hope there are a whole lot more people out there watching and streaming this, because sometimes when I talk about this job, I kid with people that they look at me like I'm a unicorn rancher, but you can see these ladies are not unicorns, okay? You have student parents sitting next to you in your classroom. If you're professors, you have students every day who are sitting in your classroom, at least one a semester, who's wondering how they're gonna get to class that day. So please, for the empty chairs, you be our messengers and you talk about student parents and you talk about this program.
All right, thank you, Susan, and thank you again to all of our panelists. And I now have one more fabulous task to take care of up here, and I am so excited about this. We are awarding for the first time the Two Generations One Future Scholarship to a student parent. And this year, Kira Mickelson was chosen as the inaugural recipient because she is so perfectly reflects the spirit of this award. So first, let's just go one quick round of applause for Kira. She reflects the spirit of this award. She reflects the mission of the Student Parent Help Center, and she reflects the commitment of all of the young parents that they serve. Ms. Mickelson was selected from the nearly 300 undergraduate students who are served by the Student Parent Help Center for a lot of reasons, including her outstanding academic record. Kira began her journey as a parent at the age of 17 when she was a senior in high school. And despite the new turn her life journey had taken, she continued to excel academically in high school, at St. Paul College, and upon entering the university here. She maximized all of the opportunities in front of her, and in addition to her role as mother to daughter Sophia, and participation in multiple internships, Kira found time to volunteer for the Student Parent Help Center's Teen Parent Outreach Program. She engaged in hours of volunteer activities, presenting on the Student Parent Help Center's program, offering insights and encouragement to other young mothers, and sharing her own story as a teen mother. In addition, Kira has been a regular attendee of the Student Parent Help Center's weekly Parents as Students support group, openly sharing her insights with peers and always extending her hand and her heart. She's a regular participant and a volunteer at program events and never fails to contribute in both large and small ways to the Student Parent Help Center community. She is kind, she is supportive, and she does what she can to help others do well too. And finally, she is also an outstanding student. With a degree in business marketing and a minor in retail merchandising, her career goal is to specialize in marketing products that are focused on the needs of women of color. With a 4.0 GPA, 3 internships on her resume, and multiple job offers months before her December graduation has even arrived, we could not ask for a better representative of the 2 generations, 1 future scholarship of the Student Parent Help Center, and of the power of a young parent to realize her academic dreams. Kira, please join us.
Hi. Actually, I didn't have anything better than that, but I will go with that. So first, I just want to thank the sponsors of the 2 Generations and 1 Dream Scholarship. I am so honored and proud to be the recipient of this scholarship, especially at the 50th anniversary of the Student Parent Help Center. Oh, I knew it. I said this. Sorry. I'm sorry. I just wanted to share the irony of me being here. When I started at the University of Minnesota, I was walking around campus at the undergrad tour that we all do, and I was with my aunt, a UofM alum, and she was like, "Okay, well, we're gonna go to the Student Parent Help Center, and that's gonna be your community." And I was like, "No, that's not going to be my community," because I wanted to separate myself. Like they talked about, the stigma of being a teen parent is so harsh, and the negative comments that you get when you're in class and you feel so segregated from everyone else. And I was like, no, I'm not going there. Like, I don't want to be a part of that. But a few months into my undergrad, or into being at the U, I was like, maybe I'll try that out. So I went to the PASS group, and everyone there was so empowering and so amazing and so dedicated. And as you can see, they're like the smartest people at the U. I'm a little biased, but they're really dedicated people. And it really made me want to be a part of it. And that's what really got me into the teen parent outreach. Because I was wondering why all support groups and why all parent groups couldn't be like this. Why couldn't they be so inclusive and empowering and just make everyone feel as great as this program has made me feel? So I'm going to cut it short so I don't get too emotional. But I really agree with what everyone said, is that programs like this are so important. It's important to have programs like these to support other teen parents, other student parents, and parents that are coming back, and communicating, and to communicate that message that we're all important, we all can get our degree, and we all can accomplish really big things. I also want to thank Susan Warfield for being there for me constantly. And the student parent staff, I've only got to know them for a little bit this semester, but they've also been really supportive. I want to thank my family, they're in the front row, for always helping me. And specifically, I want to shout out Trey and Sophia. I like to call them my Trey because I don't like the word significant other. But and Sophia for supporting me for the last 5 years through the senior year of high school and now college. And so we almost made it, guys. So thank you.
Okay, now let me see if we can get this up here because it was adorable. Did we dismantle her? Nope. Oh, it's off. We had Kira prepared the most adorable slideshow of she and the family that was just adorable, but we the machine has shut down, so we can't show that. We did want to let everybody know that there will be treats next door. We have food for everybody. And we also have time for questions if anybody has any follow-up questions from the event itself. Because I think the food isn't going to be set, we're ahead of schedule and the food isn't going to be set up for a few minutes. So we've got time. Any questions? Especially for those of you getting grades on this. Did your professor say it would be extra credit if you actually asked a question? It'll be streamed. Yes, right there. Yep. One thing would be just to promote the fact that we exist, to maybe have us do presentations to your group at some point, to make sure our website is linked wherever, I don't know what types of items you link on your website, but to have particularly programs for underrepresented populations more visible, to talk about us, to come visit the program if you ever want to stop in and interview staff about the many programs we have. Donation, we have, I know students don't have a lot of expendable income, but we have donation buttons on our website for both the Two Generations program and some other emergency assistance, which we've mentioned today, how important that is for this population. So if student programs ever wanted to do fundraisers for us, we would be totally open to that, just a visibility event where you had laptops out for them to hit the donation button. We would be open to that. But seriously, just talking about the fact that this population exists is critical. All right, thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, right here. Yep.
What are some of the efforts you guys are making to include men as a part of this help center?
I'm glad that you asked that question because we are actually very proud, and I think I did make sure we mentioned this in the program materials, but we were also one of the first programs in the country that wasn't just for single moms. We have served dads since the very beginning of our program, and actually we're in a period right now, traditionally our ratio of single moms to other married students has been about 75%, but in recent years it's become more 50-50, moms of all marital statuses and dads of all marital statuses. So we are proud. We didn't talk much about the dads, and they have similar struggles to the moms that are attending college. So thank you for asking. And I think another thing, Trey, since you asked this question, not to put you on the spot, but I think another group of heroes in this story are the people that are at home helping to care for the kids, the partners that stick by that other person when that unexpected pregnancy comes, because that is something that I know people in their 30s and 40s that reel when they have an unexpected pregnancy. You can imagine what that's like when you're 16, 17 years old and you think your whole college career is going to blow up. So I think there are many unsung heroes and heroes that aren't maybe on campus all the time that are home supporting that person to get through college. And when there is that supportive person at home, it makes it a whole lot easier for that student to achieve their dreams. Okay, yes, back there.
Hi, my name is Lindsay, and I work in sort of an academic advising capacity here. And I felt like when I went through like my own pregnancies and had my own children, that it suddenly opened. I mean, for me, going through the experience and thinking like, oh, this is hard as a working mom. This must be really hard as a student. And I felt like students were much more willing, like when they saw me pregnant or saw pictures of my kids, to disclose that they were a parent too, and that
Yep.
made our advising relationship a lot richer, and that I was able to kind of then direct them to resources and things. And I guess my question is just kind of about how do you encourage students to disclose to you that they're parents, especially men, because I feel like women, sometimes you see them come in pregnant or something and it's more obvious, but
Yep.
yeah, how do you build that relationship?
Yeah, and unfortunately, unless a student is pregnant, student parents in general tend to be an invisible population, because unless the kiddo is with them or they're pregnant, and we don't ask the question, we don't ask it at admissions because it's illegal, and they aren't likely, because of some of the things Kira said and some of the judgments, aren't likely to self-disclose. So there are simple things. A big thing is to just have our brochures out in your office where they will be visible, because they will attract the eye of a student parent. They've got cute pictures of kiddos and the parent with them, and we've got stacks of them out there at the front desk. So if you work at the U, or even if you're a student, grab some of them and put them in a visible place. Asking the question, even if student parents are a small population at a big institution like this, but if you ask every student the question, it's kind of fun, because it really terrifies the ones that aren't pregnant to have that question asked. And I know when they used to have to, when I was a GC advisor, I would advise typically age students that didn't have kids. And they would walk through the computer lab with some of the moms with babies on their laps, and they would get a big wake-up call sometimes, and we'd talk about that, and they would talk about, my gosh, I'm having a hard time getting through school now. How do these people with kiddos do it? So I think it's a mind-expanding experience to even have topics about this in school, in your classrooms. As sociology classrooms, we often cover other underrepresented populations, but I rarely see conversations about student parents in curriculum. Another thing is, if you're a teacher, a professor, have it on your curriculum. Have something that says if you are a student with family responsibilities, and that could also be typically age non-parenting that might have a little brother or sister at home that they have to take care of, or an elder parent or a sick parent that they're caring for. And so having comments like that on the syllabus really help. Okay. Any other questions? Back here.
Hi.
Hey.
I just had a question about the daycare situation on campus.
Yeah.
When I had my child in 2015, when she was born, she was number 100 on the waiting list. So, which seems impressive, but was kind of disheartening that there's that big of a waiting list. And someone mentioned something about a daycare program or childcare. I don't know if it's if it's just funding or a different center. I was just kind of curious what that was.
Yep. There is a new pool of money that is actually going to be opening next Monday. We're hoping to get the PR out across campus about that will provide an additional pool of funding for people that don't meet the post-secondary child care grant eligibility. For the first time, and again, we're the only university that I know of, and we're pretty well connected in the field, that for the first time, international students are going to be eligible for some of this money, which is based on student service fees. As far as numbers of child care centers, we actually have more child care on this campus than any single university I know in the United States. And I know it's never enough, and we could probably have one in every sector of campus, and I know there are long wait lists. But from what I've found, even some of our big student parent program competitors, like UC Berkeley, only has 2 child care centers on their campus. So I think on one hand we're never going to have the need met, but I think on one hand we're lucky that we've got anything. And I also, this is just another kudo for the U of M, I think. There are many universities across the country that are closing their child care centers right now because of liability issues or whatever fears. And there has been no indication that that's going to happen on our campus. So, so does that answer your question? Okay, any more? There was a, you had your, and then I'll go to you. Get in the front row for a change.
I actually recently wrote a paper on being a student parent, and some research that I found, actually only found one scholarly article on the student parent MFIT program. And I know that that was short-lived in like the 90s or something, and it really brought about a lot of like the pilot students. They saw a lot of change in their opportunities and how they just even viewed the world, and it really seemed to empower them because they came from poverty, a different level of poverty. And I was wondering kind of why, like what the U does to support programs like that, their programs.
Well, there could be an entire presentation on welfare and higher ed access, really. What Sarah was mentioning, those forms, that's what she was referring to. And MFIB, for those of you that may not know, that's the Minnesota Family Investment Program. That is how county and state welfare is presented at the U of M, or at the state of Minnesota. That's our welfare system. And it never becomes consistent because it kind of, like many things, flows with political tides. And so there can be some really innovative programs in some states. Kentucky has some very cool things where they will actually put county welfare workers on community college campuses to make it easier for students to access their benefits. And that's part of that is because they experience so much poverty and they realize education is going to help the state of Kentucky get out of that. And then you'll see in other states it swings way the other way. Minnesota has pretty liberal policies right now on MFIB when it comes to child care assistance, and there is a 2-year training and education benefit, so they don't automatically. There was a day in my lifetime at the center when they would cut people off the minute they knew they were going to the university. And say you have to choose between being a student or being on welfare. And right now, they are not taking that hard line. But there are many policies that could be changed. And that one that Sarah talked about, that's what she was talking about, is the welfare system actually makes students, not every worker, but there are some workers that will enforce this, bring their paperwork that shows their benefit receiving individual and make their professors sign that they were in class and that they're enrolled. Now, think about the humiliation of that. And everything else about welfare can be confidential, but not when it comes to things like that. And for professors out there that are hearing this, either online or in the audience, we will do those forms for students, because all we have to do is look up the enrollment. That's what they're verifying, is that they're in class. And it puts the student and the professor in a very weird one-up, one-down position, very embarrassing. And that is a way to get a student in the door right there. If they hand you one of those forms, say, you know what, I know people that are experts, they'll sign this in the privacy of their office, and they'll take care of you, and you'll get a bunch of other resources as well. So I know that doesn't answer your question, and this is something else for professors out there, there is not a lot of scholarly research on this population, and that's sad too. All right. I think we can take one, yep.
All right, thank you for doing this, by the way. I'm learning a lot. This is my first semester here at the U, so I was just wondering if you could give maybe highlights of the services or programs that your center provides.
Yep. We provide a weekly undergraduate student-parent group called PASS that is a community building group for them. Once they do an intake with our program, that's basically our process, students are referred, they can do a 45-minute intake, get screened for everything they need, childcare grants, whatever is available, even if they needed an emergency assistance grant and they were in crisis when they walked through the door, that would be a possibility. They're invited to group, and from that point on, they can show up any week they want. It's not mandated they attend, but that's a great way for them to meet other student parents, talk about their struggles and their triumphs. We hold family-friendly events, which the research that does exist says that for student parents to feel engaged, you need to incorporate their children. They aren't likely to have time to go to after-school events because they've got to pick up their kiddos from about 4 o'clock on. But if you hold events where they can bring their kids back, they will engage and it keeps them connected to campus. So we hold several of those a year. We march in homecoming. You'll see us all out there together. We have financial assistance that is unique in the nation. We've got the post-secondary child care grant because that's a Minnesota state thing that is very progressive. We have the new UFES money, which is going to roll out soon. We have more emergency assistance funding due to some wonderful donations from several sources that we can give out emergency grants if they can't pay their rent because they've just had to make a tuition payment and they're short on May rent at the end of the year. We can help with that. Utility bills. We fix somebody's toilet. I mean, think about who does not want to deal with that in the middle of a term. We can even pay for plumbing and things like that. And the other thing is we have a fully trained staff. We're all family educators or social workers, so there's literally nothing that we can't either fix ourselves or find a resource for out in the community, and we will go beyond the walls of campus. We don't just make campus referrals. We can find people out in the community that can help for things that we don't have on campus, which is key to serving students with kids. Okay. Anything else? Is that it? Oh, okay.
So I'm an alum. I don't have a question, but I would just like to say thank you to you because you are the reason why I graduated in 2008, and I went on to get a master's, and I now run programming. So I'm here kind of in dual purposes. I got this email in my inbox for alums, and I thought I could not see myself being anywhere else other than here today, so I cleared my calendar and came to be here and hear the panel and be with all of you. But Susan Warfield helped myself, and then at the time I was married, my husband, so for the gentleman asking about men, and you did it really non-judgmental. We live in Eden Prairie, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in United States, but it was the recession. And so we were experiencing a lot of financial turmoil, and I was pregnant with my second child, and I was not going to graduate. I had said, I was literally 3 months before graduation, I had said I was going to stop. And Susan said, no, you will not stop. And she pushed me, and it was the push that I needed, and I finished. And then I went on to have a baby in August of that year, and then started graduate school shortly thereafter. So your program and your work and your spirit makes all the difference, and I want you to know I thank you, and my family thanks you, and my children thank you for everything that you do.
And I do remember you. Thank you so much. And now we serve graduate students, so some of our students are coming back for that second degree, and we're helping them. We missed you. All right, any last questions? All right, we can head to the treats next door. There's an exit that way that'll take you right out to the lobby. Oh, sorry. Sorry, yep, sorry.